2009, Pennsylvania. The Civil Emergency and Defense Agency, CEDA, received information that an unidentified disease was rapidly spreading throughout the populace. Though initially concerned, yet not alarmed, the response was a campaign focusing on hand sanitation. This response, however, quickly proved ineffective in terms of containment. Despite confusion regarding the disease's origin, the alleged patient zero was quickly located and taken to the fourth floor of the Mercy Hospital in Fairfield, where he was put under observation and his blood was tapped for further analysis. Whatever this disease was, it was spreading quickly, concerningly quick, unlike anything ever observed before. However, its side effects were even more troubling. Upon contraction, the subject would experience an incubation period of anything from 4 days to as little as 5 minutes. The subject would then grow relentlessly aggressive before losing most higher brain functions, turning the infected into a rabid and mindless animal prone to nothing but maiming and killing anything in the vicinity which hadn't contracted the virus. These symptoms, the side effects, and the disease's immense level of contagion would, however, be kept secret from the public. The disease was given the name the green flu. With the speed of transmission, CEDA began fearing that the disease might be airborne rather than through direct contact. A demand that masks be worn by citizens was instated, on top of the implementation of decontamination trailers across major urban areas in an attempt to stop the spread of the disease. The virus would, however, infect more citizens than what CEDA could keep up with, which led to CEDA escalating their containment protocols, isolating infected individuals in minor installations in a desperate attempt to slow the spread of the virus. This method, however, would fail, as the buildings meant for isolation were compromised by the violence of those who had contracted the virus, and because of this, the infected spilled out into the public. As the population became aware of the violent actual effects of the green flu, panic and riots erupted in several major cities, both in and around Pennsylvania. Lootings and gridlocks took over the urban scenes as the citizens tried to avoid both the infected, scavenge for resources, and leave their contaminated cities. In an attempt to remedy the situation, CEDA hired several private security companies to contain the riots and restore order. Unfortunately, as the conditions of the cities deteriorated and the infected became ever more prominent in the streets, the security companies, who weren't properly equipped to deal with biological threats, were immediately contaminated through direct contact with the virus. With the circumstances of several major cities on the West Coast becoming rapidly unstable and failing to both identify, contain, and treat the threat of the virus, CEDA resorted to creating evacuation centers in hospitals, arenas, and malls, where the citizens could gather to receive instructions on further evacuation. Unfortunately, at this point, the outbreak had become so severe that the infected would make it to these areas as well, and it didn't take long before the evacuation centers crumbled as well. Seeing that CEDA was unable to contain the spread of the infection, the US military stepped in, seizing all operational checkpoints and facilities. Though the public initially felt relief by the presence of the military's aggressive approach of dividing, confining, and eradicating not only the infected, but also those suspected of being infected, quickly presented yet another threat to the public. Martial law was put into motion, and in contrast to CEDA, who had advocated an anti-gun policy, the military encouraged all citizens to arm themselves and fight for their lives, as a large percentage of the population had already been lost. Yet in the middle of all this chaos, it would seem that there were some who didn't succumb to the immediate exposure of the virus or the direct contact with the infected, people who somehow had a natural immunity to the green flu. As researchers quickly established, this immunity turned out to be granted by a recessive allele on the X chromosome. The scientists took into account the genetic composition of both men and women, and as they compared it with the number of immune civilians encountered, they calculated a statistical probability that immunity against the virus would likely be present in 1 in 3 males and 1 in 9 females. On top of that, the scientists added an optimistic projection that if the recessive gene appeared as much as the dominant gene, it would put 22% of the world's population as immune to the green flu. However, it would turn out that this genetic immunity was a much rarer mutation than anticipated, leaving the actual number much lower. But alas, this genetic mutation that prevented the survivors from succumbing to the virus wasn't a complete immunity. Rather, this immunity made the survivors asymptomatic carriers of the green flu, unable to turn, yet still fully capable of infecting others. What the green flu exactly was is still uncertain. What is certain, however, is that it wasn't a flu at all. The name was merely a cover to avoid full-blown panic across the population as the virus was spreading amongst them. It is speculated that the green flu was mutated from a strain of rabies, as the spread of the virus seemed to be transmitted through bites, primarily blood, saliva, and vomit. It is assumed that the virus cross-contaminated the human species through farmers and their direct contact with livestock. This speculation is further substantiated by dozens of immune survivors who reported seeing piles upon piles of dead cows with their skin scraped back from their skulls, indicating that brain samples had been taken, which is one of the most reliable methods of determining the presence of rabies. On top of that, within the Metro International Airport of Newburgh, Pennsylvania, several recent warning posters can be seen ordering any individual that had been in contact with livestock to immediately contact an airport employee or supervisor. It would, however, seem that this strain of mutated rabies was particularly aggressive and radically volatile in its behavior. Speculation among several medical professionals who studied the effects of the virus up close has left us with the possibility of the green flu not only having gender-specific mutations, but also that the disease itself was changing behavior on an almost daily basis, rendering the attempt at creating vaccines or serums a practical impossibility. However, the true consequences of the virus's radical ability to mutate would not become undeniable until 2 weeks into the outbreak. From among the raging and violent hordes of infected people emerged even more disturbing terrors. The infection no longer only changed behavior, it also altered the physical properties of its victims. Some cases led to huge swelling and bloating of the subject, this most likely caused by the rapid creation of bile in their liver. These subjects would grow immensely large and become particularly fragile, and would either by their own will or when their skin was punctured, spew out a massive amount of toxic chemicals, which would act as a pheromone for the regular infected, who would then frantically charge at anyone marked by the chemical. Other mutations were so violent they saw an immense increase in the hormonal production of certain male victims. This worked them into massive powerhouses of pure muscle, allowing some of the mutations to leap 30 to 40 feet into the air, others able to grab a full-grown man by the neck and pummel him, and some so huge they were able to fling a car through the air with ease. Some survivors have even reported radical physical mutations, such as a species with the ability to catch and strangle victims with its tongue, and another with the ability to spit corrosive acid. As these rapid mutations resulted in more and more violent and dangerous infected appearing in the contaminated zones, combined with the unpredictable nature of the virus's own evolution, Combating the outbreak on both a large and microscopic scale proved to be highly problematic. The infection tore through one major urban area after the other, and while the severity of the outbreak on an international level remains uncertain, the intel gathered by CDA suggests that by day 24 of the outbreak, most, if not all, major cities on the east coast of the United States had been overrun and consumed by the epidemic known as the Green Flu. Hey there, Hazmat here. That concludes the overall story of Left 4 Dead, and I hope you enjoyed it. As always, a big thanks goes out to the Hunters Lounge, specifically the exclusive Get Your Boy, the exclusive Johnny Sevens, the VIPs, Corvo Bear Slayer, Derivative, Doc Powell, Gino Lucero, Goose, Hambone, Chimino Bob, Corey Peterson, Michael Thornhill, Murtif Menace, Line, Slip, Stas Piestek, Sunrise Phoenix, TJ Crane, Texas Toast, and the Wizard of Copper. And of course, all the regulars. If you want to support me directly as a content creator, consider signing up as a member of the Hunters Lounge either on Patreon or here on YouTube. The link is in the description below. And thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.